I'm Jenny Laughlin, and I am the president of Richardson Area Democrats, also known as RAD. Progress Texas is the one that is keeping us informed and encouraged with information all the time. And we are just so thrilled that they're keeping on. We don't need to be sitting down and getting scared anymore. It's time to go.
Maybe get rad.
And get rad.
It's Monday, April 20th, 2026, and this is the Progress Texas Daily Dispatch. Rapid response on the breaking news stories Texas progressives need to know. I'm Chris Mosier. Progress Texas amplifies progressive values, leaders, and actions. Through our no paywall podcasts and digital media, we reach millions of Texans monthly, and that's made possible by folks like you who invest in independent progressive media by Texans for Texans. Thanks so much to Francesca Beaumont, Rachel Albers, and Lee McAfee for their ongoing sustaining support. We really appreciate it. A couple of notable developments in the reproductive justice lane to start this Monday. Kavitha Sarana and Lizzie Presser at ProPublica via CNN have been covering the Texas Medical Board's recent disciplinary actions against 3 doctors in Texas, the details of which provide a chilling look at the very human and very real cost of our state's restrictive abortion bans. These sanctions follow investigations into the preventable deaths of 2 young Texas women, Nevaeh Crane and Portia Gumenzi, who, as we've talked about, died after medical interventions were fatally delayed or withheld despite clear signs of sepsis and life-threatening hemorrhaging. In the case of Nevaeh Crane, the board found that multiple doctors failed to meet basic standards of care as she transitioned into septic shock. Despite a 103-degree fever and signs of infection, she was repeatedly sent home until her condition became so dire that she was moved into the ICU at Christus Southeast Texas St. Elizabeth Hospital in Beaumont, but not before she was forced to undergo 2 separate ultrasounds to confirm fetal demise. By the time legal documentation was satisfied, Crane was too unstable for surgery and died with the fetus still in her womb. Similarly, the Texas Medical Board disciplined a doctor in Portia Gumenzi's case for failing to perform a standard D&C procedure while she was bleeding out during a miscarriage at Houston Methodist Sugar Land Hospital, scenes that should have no place in medicine in 2026. Ultimately, both of these horrific and unnecessary deaths highlight the culture of fear that has been built under the very professional foundations of our doctors, who now face up to 99 years in prison if they get this wrong, according to state law, and thus are motivated to prioritize covering their own asses over preserving the lives and future reproductive viability of their patients. We're also seeing how that culture of fear is now an intrinsic procedural feature of reproductive medicine in Texas. The Texas Medical Board's willingness to sanction these doctors is a rare acknowledgement of substandard care, but let's be clear that the penalties more or less consist of a requirement for additional training, very much a slap in the face to grieving families, and certainly a favorable outcome to prison or the loss of these doctors' licenses, which sends a fresh message of even more motivation to other doctors in the field to err on the side of endangering their patients. As the state blames doctors for misinterpreting the law, observable spikes in sepsis rates and maternal mortality across Texas suggest that our state's abortion bans have made life-saving medical care that's standard in most other states and advanced countries around the world professionally and legally toxic here in Texas. The life of the mother, which should be the central and immediate medical priority, is now treated as a secondary bureaucratic hurdle. Further in reproductive justice today, Daniel Weissner at Reuters writes on the legal challenge brought by Dr. Remy Coiteau of California against Texas's HB 7 in a significant instance of resistance to Texas's bounty hunter enforcement model that's become key to a range of right-wing culture war legislation. As we've mentioned, Dr. Coiteau is being sued by a private Texas citizen, Jerry Rodriguez, who seeks to use that law to penalize this doctor as an out-of-state telehealth provider who mailed reproductive medication into Texas. With the help of attorney and former Texas Solicitor General Jonathan Mitchell, who, as you may know, is the architect of the bounty hunter provision, Dr. Coiteau's filing argues that HB 7 is a fundamental violation of democratic rule as it delegates government enforcement authority to unaccountable private citizens, bypassing elected officials and district attorneys, and thus creating a shadow legal system designed to target and harass providers through civil litigation. Furthermore, the defense highlights a critical irony in this specific case. Jerry Rodriguez, the plaintiff, has a prior conviction for family violence, which would legally disqualify him from bringing such a suit as he has no standing. Dr. Coiteau's lawsuit also points out that HB 7 illegally interferes with interstate commerce by specifically targeting out-of-state providers while exempting those in Texas, a direct and obvious violation of the U.S. Constitution's Commerce Clause. 60% of abortions in the United States are now safely performed via medication, and this law is an attempt to deny that medical advancement to Texans in particular. The bounty hunter model of HB 7 represents the establishment of legal precedent that can be used to trample basic rights in other areas, not just those related to reproductive freedom. HB 20, for example, would similarly allow private Texas citizens to sue major social media platforms if they believe content they've posted was removed or suppressed based on their political viewpoint. This model pits Texans against Texans while also muddying the waters of accountability, and for that reason, HB 7 should be struck down. It's been a minute since we picked on Elon Musk. He's been relatively quiet lately, but that appears about to change. Samuel Petriquin at The Independent says prosecutors in Paris, France, not Paris, Texas, have summoned Musk and former ex-CEO Linda Yaccarino for questioning regarding a criminal investigation into the platform formerly known as Twitter, centering on alleged complicity on the part of its management in the spreading of child sexual abuse material, non-consensual deepfakes, and Holocaust denial. Could see an early instance here of billionaire tech bros actually being held accountable to international law. Investigators are specifically scrutinizing Musk's Grok AI system, which is built into Twitter and is known for cranking out explicit images, hate speech, and all manner of ugly. French authorities have also suggested that Grok's perversions may be deliberate and, in fact, designed to inflate the valuations of X and XAI ahead of a merger and stock market listing planned for June. Unsurprisingly, back at home, the Trump DOJ has defended all of this as part of Elon Musk's personal range of free expression, but their counterparts in Europe appear to see things differently. That's going to be a very interesting case to follow. As you know, if you're a regular, there are not one but two Texas elections on the radar. Local city elections on May 2nd and the statewide primary runoffs on May 26th. Early voting in those local elections starts today, and one of the biggest bits being voted on is that $845 million bond package in Fort Worth, which comes at a critical time as Cowtown grapples with both explosive growth and its own history of geographic inequality. While the 6 provisions are technically nonpartisan, an overview shows the tension present in this one between basic maintenance and the urgent need for social equity. A major focus for local advocates is Proposition B, which allocates $185 million for parks, including $30 million for the rebuilding of the Tatiana Carr Jefferson Community Center, an opportunity for restorative justice for the Hillside Morningside neighborhood. Similarly, the $511 million for street improvements in Proposition A is being seen as a chance to move towards mobility justice, with supporters advocating investment that protects pedestrians and cyclists in historically neglected corridors of Fort Worth. Proposition D, which offers only $10 million for affordable housing development, is seen by advocates as insufficient for a booming city of nearly 1 million people and counting. Those advocates hold that for Fort Worth to be a truly world-class and cutting-edge city, it must move beyond just fixing potholes and start making bold, large-scale investments in human infrastructure and housing stability. So a mixed bag for sure, and there's more to discover as voting starts today. We've included a link to the Fort Worth Report's coverage of the various parts of the bond election in our show notes this morning. As for the midterm runoffs, your registration deadline is April 27th. That's 1 week from today. And early voting in the runoff will begin on May 18th. More on voting in Texas at our carefully crafted voting information website, govotexas.org. And there's a nice online tool from the Texas Tribune that shows you exactly who will be on your runoff ballot based on your address and party. See that link in our show notes. And we have not one but two live events on the calendar right now in both Dallas and the Houston area. First will be in Cypress at the very cool Creekwood Grill for a live podcast taping with new Sci-Fair ISD board members to discuss their plans to reinstate textbook chapters and other learning materials undermined by their MAGA predecessors. We want you there, but seating is limited and an RSVP is required to attend. This will happen on the evening of Wednesday, May the 20th. See the show notes for a link to get signed up. And we're also getting ready for our 16th anniversary celebration in Dallas with drinks, light bites, and a fun review of the highlights of our successes over the last few years. Save the date, which is Tuesday, June 16th, and see the link in the show notes to reserve your spot in Big D. Snag some merch to match your values at our web store at ProgressTexas.org. You'll see newly released Humans Against Abbott, Y'all Means All, and our very popular Resist shirts, stickers, and buttons at the web store at ProgressTexas.org. to support your favorite podcast network today. That's the Progress Texas Daily Dispatch for this Monday, April 20th, 2026. Links to all these original stories can be found in our show notes. When lies in Texas are well funded by the far right, your support for fact-based reporting is needed and appreciated. I'm Chris Mosier. Thanks so much for listening. Have a great day and a great week. We'll catch you again tomorrow morning.